Hey, welcome to our video. It's Anthony here, and we've got Joe as well. Today our topic is Canadian financial systems. Now, before we begin, I've got Joe with the pun of the day.
No, Anthony, I used to want to be a banker, but then I lost interest.
A&J Films present an educational video on Canada's finance. Starring Anthony Calabro and Joe A.O.
What is finance? Basically, finance is the management of money, usually by large corporations or governments. A financial system, in its most basic form, is a system that brings lenders and borrowers together. Borrowers are able to obtain money from lenders, and lenders are able to provide their assets to the borrowers. In addition to lending and borrowing services, a financial system usually includes a method of being able to store your money. Financial institutions are categorized into 5 broad categories. These 5 broad categories are insurance companies, pension funds, investment dealers and traders, finance companies, and holding institutions.
So the first one is insurance companies. Insurance companies protect individuals like you and me against heavy losses that are caused by things like water damage, fire damage, car accidents, etc. Pension funds are an investment tool that employers or individuals contribute to during their working life. Upon retirement, regular payments are paid back to the individual.
The third topic we are on is investment dealers and traders. This section deals with the stock market. The role of investment dealers and traders is to act as stockbrokers, which basically mean they trade company shares to the general public. The fourth topic, or category, is finance companies. These companies, basically all they do is loan money. In turn, they gain interest from the money loan, and that's how they work. The fifth and final section is holding institutions. Holding institutions' sole purpose is to store money.
Now, banks are commonly categorized into this category. However, as you'll come to learn in this presentation, banks do much more than just holding your money. We're now going to talk to you about the Canadian banking system. Tony?
Let's begin with the basics. What is the purpose of a bank? To the general public, the main purpose of a bank is to have a safe place to store their money. Pun not intended. However, those who want to purchase big-ticket items, such as cars or a house, may find that the bank is willing to loan them money to buy their item. However, borrowing money is not free. There is a cost attached to it known as interest. You pay back the principal amount plus the extra, which is interest, back to the bank when you're done.
So how does the Canadian banking system really work? So Canada uses something called a branch banking system. This is a system that was adopted from Britain many years ago. A system like this restricts the amount of banks you can have, but the banks themselves can have as many branches as they want. So the best way to understand the Canadian banking system is to look at it like a tree almost. What the hell is that?
Mate, what do you think? I drew a tree for us.
Drew a tree? That doesn't look like a tree. Come on.
Okay, well, let's see you do better.
I'll draw a tree. I'll draw a
Alright,
tree.
you draw.
Watch this.
What do you mean that's better,
What
mate?
do you mean?
That looks like a piece of broccoli.
You know what? Let's just go to Google Images. We'll find an image.
Alright, I like that.
Alright.
That one looks good.
Thank you. So, like I said before, the best way to understand Canadian banking system is to look at it like a tree. The roots of the tree represent the Central Bank of Canada. The trunk of the tree represents the 5 main banks. That's your CIBC, BMO, Scotia, TD, etc. The leaves of the tree, or the branches, represent all the different branches of those respective banks.
What are the advantages of such a system? The biggest advantage is for security of the depositors. If the bank faces an unexpected withdrawal and does not have the funds to be able to pay this withdrawal out, they may borrow from other areas in the specific bank. By doing this, the bank helps to keep its confidence amongst depositors for the bank to keep on depositing more money because they know their money is safe.
So let me explain to you what a chartered bank is. In Canada, in order to operate a bank, you need something that's called a charter. A charter is given to the bank by the government, allows them to operate. While there are several chartered banks in Canada, only 5 of them make up the majority of total banking assets.
There are 5 main banks that operate in Canada. These ones are TD Bank, Scotiabank, BMO, CIBC, and RBC. These are the most successful banks in Canada. However, how do we measure success?
The most common gauge to success of a business is how much profit it makes.
I think we all understand that banks make money through interest.
However, how do banks create this money to loan out? Tom, how much money we make today?
Oh mate, look at this. This bank is like a money printer.
Oh my god. Whoa. Oh, that's a cash cow, eh?
Mate, banks, they create a lot of money. No they don't. They don't create money. They make money.
Now, as we said before, the number one gauge to success is a bank's profit. Now, if a bank's not profiting, then it's not successful. Banks take the money that we deposit and in turn lend it out to other people. Hey, Tony, here's that loan you wanted. I got it for you. Here.
Thanks, John.
So the best way to explain this to you is through a case study, and let's go and explain that inside. So let's say someone, let's call him Mr. Belmonte, has $1,000, and he decides to put that $1,000 into a Bank of Montreal account. Let's just draw Mr. Belmonte here.
So, Mr. Belmonte, he decides to put his $1,000 into a bank account. After leaving it for 1 full year, he gains 1% interest on it, which is an extra $10. Tony, on the other hand, needs to borrow $1,000 to open up a pastry shop. So he decides to go to his bank, which is BMO, to get that loan. So the $1,000 that Mr. Belmonte has deposited in BMO, BMO then takes that money and lends it out to Tony to open up his pastry shop. So BMO gives back Mr. Belmonte 1% interest. BMO also charges Tony for Mr. Belmonte's money 5% interest, thus making a net profit of 4% interest annually. So from this whole transaction, the bank makes 4% annual. That only comes out to $40. Now, that may not seem like much money, but the bank does millions of these transactions per year. Now you can begin to understand the reason why banks promote putting your money into the bank and also loaning money out.
So let's say Mr. Belmonte wants to take out his loan from Bank of Montreal, but the bank has already lent it to Tony. Now the bank has a few options. By law, the bank must carry a certain fraction of their assets on hand at all times, in cash. This is known as the bank reserve. For our case study, it'll be $10 million. So the bank can take that and pay back Mr. Belmonte. But what happens if there is no bank reserve? Well, BMO can now go to Bank of Canada and ask for the loan. Bank of Canada is now able to offer BMO a loan at a rate of, let's say, 0.5%. Now some of you might be thinking, why is that so low? Now this special rate for the bank is called the overnight rate. The Bank of Canada is allowed to set these special rates towards other banks. Individuals like you and me cannot go bank with Bank of Canada. Bank of Canada is a bank's bank. So we've talked to you now about what banks are and how banks create money.
Make money.
Thank you, Tom. But now we're going to talk to you about something you might not know about or even heard of before. How banks destroy money. Now once again, banks don't actually destroy money literally. They simply take it out of circulation, replace old bills with new bills. For example, when's the last time you saw one of these babies? Yeah, long time, eh? That's thanks to the Canadian banking system.
So why haven't you seen one of those in a long time? Well, for this, as Joe said, you can thank the Canadian banking system. When we have old bills and we give them to the bank to deposit, they then take that money, and if new ones come out, let's say the new polymer bills, the bank will then send that money off to the Bank of Canada to be replaced with the new bills to take the old ones out of circulation.
So this entire time we've been talking to you about Canadian banks within the Canadian banking system. These are the chartered banks we talked about earlier.
However, in Canada, there still is room for foreign banks, but most of us probably never heard of them before.
I know I haven't.
Me neither.
So, Tone, why do we have these foreign banks in Canada?
Well, Canada opened the gates to the foreign banks because they felt that too few, namely the top 5 banks, had control of the Canadian banking system. They opened it so that the foreign banks can bring some competition to the banking system in Canada.
So, to recap our presentation, what is finance? Finance involves the management of people's money. Finance is categorized into 5 sections: insurance companies, pension funds, investment dealers and traders, financial companies, and holding institutions. The Canadian banking system. A bank is a financial institution that involves borrowing and lending money. Canada uses something called the branch banking system, which was adopted from Britain many years ago. All Canadian banks require a charter to operate. A bank can have as many branches as it wants. And how banks make money. Banks take deposits from people like you and me and in turn lend it out for profits. The bank is required to keep a percentage of its deposits in cash. This is known as the reserve ratio, and it's usually around 10%. And how banks destroy money. The Bank of Canada and chartered banks work together to remove worn-out bills from circulation. Bank of Canada takes old bills and exchanges them for new bills.